Let me tell you a story. It's about a man whose entire job was to prepare everyone else for the absolute worst. But really, it's about a paradox, one that's hiding right there in plain sight. A paradox of routine, of safety, and of one single silent button.
So, let's start with a really interesting question, the one that's at the heart of this whole thing. What if the one thing that's supposed to keep you safe is actually the very thing putting you to sleep?
To get into this, we're going to look at a story, a kind of allegory about a man whose name, fittingly enough, was Panic. And his entire life, his whole 40-year career, was built around one single repetitive action. For 40 long years, 3 times a day, Panic's job was simple: press a button. This would trigger a huge building-wide safety drill to keep everyone on their toes. In year 1, sure, that sound was jarring, but by year 40, it was just background noise, a mindless tick for him and for everybody else. The predictable had become completely safe and totally invisible. Now, this story, it's not just some fable, right? It actually points to a really powerful psychological trap that can get any of us, especially when a routine feels completely and totally safe. Let's look at how this automatic safety becomes a real-world danger. So the first big idea here is something called complacency bias. This is basically a state of lowered alertness that comes from routine. I mean, when you do something over and over and over again and nothing bad ever happens, your brain just learns that, hey, nothing will go wrong. We get overconfident and our actual awareness of danger just fades away. And that leads right into this next concept, which is kind of wild when you think about it. It's called trained incapacity. This is where your past successes actually become your biggest weaknesses. You get so good at the routine, so skilled in one way of doing things, that when the conditions suddenly change, you can't adapt. Your training has, ironically, made you incapable of handling a new reality. And here's the thing, this isn't about being sloppy or bad at your job. Actually, complacency is an even bigger risk for really capable, really experienced people. Their deep familiarity with a task can completely mute their natural sense of caution, which makes them the most vulnerable to missing those subtle little signs that something is about to go terribly wrong. All right, so this brings us back to our story, and right to the moment where everything just breaks. For our guy Panic, the predictable world he's known for decades is about to completely shatter. He pushes that button, just like he has, tens of thousands of times before. But this time, there's only silence. The familiar building-shaking alarm doesn't sound. The system, the one and only thing he relied on, has broken. And listen, this isn't just a story. This failure of routine has had absolutely devastating real-world consequences. We've seen it in high-risk places like film sets. The tragedies on the sets of Twilight Zone, the movie, Top Gun, and more recently Rust, they were all linked back to failures where a complacent attitude towards safety protocols led to catastrophe. For them, the danger had become just background noise. And for our character, this is the moment. That external alarm he'd been sending out to everyone else, suddenly, he feels it surge inside him. For the very first time, the man named Panic feels the raw, unfiltered biological experience of panic itself. The signal he sent out for 40 years has finally come home. So what is that feeling, really? Let's break down the huge, huge difference between a practiced, orderly safety drill and the chaotic, biological reality of a genuine state of panic. On one hand, you've got the drill. It's all neat and tidy, predictable, external. It's a simulation. But then there's the feeling. It's chaotic, it's overwhelming, and it's deeply, deeply internal. It's not a simulation. It's a physiological takeover. And that is the chasm Panic just fell into. So what's actually happening inside his body? Well, the second his brain screams threat, the hypothalamus just hits the big red button on his nervous system, launching the fight or flight response. It floods his body with adrenaline and cortisol. His heart pounds, his blood pressure skyrockets, his breathing gets short and shallow. It's the body's emergency system working perfectly, but it's been triggered by a psychological shock, not a physical one. You know, a great way to think about this internal chaos is to imagine our minds have different parts. We've got a manager part that absolutely loves routine and control. It keeps everything predictable. For 40 years, Panic's manager was firmly in charge. But when that button failed, that control shattered. And for the first time, a reactive firefighter part took over, flooding his system with pure, unfiltered panic. Okay, but here's the thing. Out of all this chaos, comes a totally new understanding. See, the goal isn't to shut the alarm off. It's about learning to understand it better. It's all about recalibration. So, how do we fight this complacency that leads to these system failures? Well, it's not a one-time fix, that's for sure. It's a constant practice. It means shaking up the routine with varied training, putting safety above pressure, encouraging people to speak up, and, this is crucial, having independent oversight. You need a fresh set of eyes that aren't blinded by the same old routine. And this quote, man, it just nails it. The problem isn't that our internal alarm system, our panic response, exists. It's there for a reason, right? To protect us. The problem is when it becomes inaccurate, giving us false alarms or, in panic's case, failing to go off when it should. The goal is not to turn it off, but to recalibrate it. And this all leads to the final, huge transformation for our character, and the ultimate lesson he learns from his own terrifying moment of panic. In that single moment of quiet chaos, Panic has this incredible realization. His job was never really about the button. It wasn't about training people for the threat they could see, but preparing them for the overwhelming, chaotic feeling they would experience on the inside. He'd trained their bodies for a drill, but totally forgot to prepare their minds for reality. He finally gets it, his true purpose. He wasn't there to be the source of panic, the source of a mindless drill. He was there to teach people how to listen to and manage their own internal alarms. True safety wasn't about just following a procedure, it was about teaching people to protect themselves from the inside out. And that leaves all of us with a final question to chew on. Think about your own safety routines, the things you do every single day, automatically. Yeah, they protect you from the dangers you expect, but what are they hiding from you? What unexpected risks are just waiting, lurking, right underneath the surface of your own predictable world?